Hello, we have decided to take a look at the relationship between happiness score and GDP per capita. Happiness score is the national average response to the questions of life evaluations. The evaluation asks a person where they believe they would be standing on a 0 to 10 step ladder, where step 10 is the best possible life for them and step 0 is the worst possible life for them. The measure used is called the Cantrell Life Ladder.
Output per person. You calculate a country's GDP per capita by dividing the GDP of the country by its whole population. For example, to find the United States GDP in 2020, you take the population of the country in 2020, which was 329.5 million, and divide that number by the GDP, which was $20.94 trillion, and you will get $63,543. Also, some key takeaways are that GDP per capita is a global measure used by economists.
As you can see from the graph shown here, there is a positive relationship between happiness score and GDP per capita. Higher GDP per capita means higher happiness score. The three countries we will be looking at are Singapore, Egypt, and the United Kingdom.
Singapore is a small tropical island located in Southeast Asia. Singapore had the second highest GDP per capita in 2018. However, it is said that the island has one of the unhappiest workforces in the world. Singapore also came up in the conversation of countries with the highest concerns on employees' mental health. One of the leading factors comes from a lack of workflows and clear structures, which employees stay at unnecessary strain and stress. However, Singapore has become the only Asian country to achieve a higher GDP per capita than the US under every measure. Singapore's high numbers are detailed as the success of an open economy. Studies have shown that Singapore's domestic development was heavily based on the huge inflation of labor and capital. With these two major contributing factors, productivity growth surprisingly played little to zero role at all.
Egypt's happiness score fluctuates a lot, but its GDP per capita has only increased about $3,000 since 2004. Happiness score dropped 1.5 points from 2009 until 2013. The largest drop from year to year occurs from 2011 to 2012. Egypt's happiness score dropped from 4.2 to 3.5 between these years. This large drop can be attributed to unmet expectations after the 2011 uprising, which gave many Egyptians a sense of hope and excitement for the future of their country under a new leader. For example, the media spread news that the wealth of the former president, Mubarak, would be redistributed to the public, but this ended up not being true, leaving Egyptians feeling a sense of loss and unhappiness. Another reason for Egyptians' unhappiness is the unequal distribution of wealth in the country. The World Bank estimates that about 60% of the population is poor and vulnerable. There is a large economic gap in Egypt that is not addressed by its leaders, who are often more interested in personal gain and wealth than the well-being of the country. Egypt's leaders are a reason why the country's GDP per capita is relatively stagnant throughout the past 18 years. Egypt has weak democratic institutions that don't hold leaders accountable, which makes it hard for the country's economy to grow.
Reports show that along with Singapore, British workers are some of the unhappiest in the world. It is reported that around 40% lack any workplace flexibility, 50% feel no sense of purpose in their jobs, and about 14% rather not even participate in company activities, and the list continues from there. Contributing factor in these cases would be that 45% of United Kingdom employers offer zero workplace wellness activities for their employees, versus the US, where that number is at only 13%, and the country is at the top of the happiness scale. According to the Gallup World Poll, there has been a significant decrease in the amount of happy or thriving employees in the United Kingdom, while the GDP per capita has steadily risen, but not at a very significant rate, with the numbers staying relatively the same.
Overall, the countries who have a higher GDP per capita scored a higher happiness score, proving the relationship between the two to be positive. Although the two variables seem to be related, there are many other variables that affect a country's happiness score or a country's GDP per capita. We say this because many countries' happiness scores will fluctuate up and down over the years, while the GDP per capita hardly increases. proving that there may be other variables in play.